More like how to get demonetized 101, am I right? Today we're going to learn how to curse in German, by which I mean we will learn all the bad words of the German language. We won't learn how to, do damage to your enemies by way of magic. Listen, German dark magic is very powerful, and I'm not gonna be the one who gives it to the world. So first of all, understand that Germany is a very culturally diverse nation where people speak a lot of different dialects, and a lot of different areas have their own little insult niches. I tried to go for like a good mix of insults that everyone would understand if they come from Germany, but some of them might be colored by my Rhineland bias. So without further ado, let's talk exclamations. One of the most important things to understand about cursing is that the words you are saying to your brain are not mapped to what the dictionary definitions of those words are. So for instance, when you say fuck, you're not referring to sexual intercourse, you're not thinking about sexual intercourse, unless it's something that you say during sexual intercourse. You're just expressing anger. And so what do Germans use instead of fuck? Well, fuck, actually. This is for some a sad reality, but Germans generally just use the English word fuck in exactly the same way that people in the English-speaking world use the English word fuck. Except never in the context of sexual intercourse. That's ficken. Some people started saying ficken instead of fuck, like ironically, because we adapt English words into German. It's a bit of a meme. But as with so many things that you do ironically for a while, eventually you just start doing it unironically. A big all-time classic that everybody probably knows is Arschloch. It's not particularly interesting because it just means the exact same thing as its translation asshole in English, both in the literal this is the body part it refers to and this is the kind of person it refers to sense. Instead, have one of the German deep law insults, Opfer. This word means victim, and it comes from the lower class gangster rap scene. An Opfer is a victim of something, usually bullying, but often also violent crime. You're essentially insulting a victim of bullying as a victim of bullying, which is some precision German engineering. An Opfer is someone who is at your mercy. They are the victim of whatever you choose to do with them. Someone who calls people Opfer will often be the kind of person who is referred to as a Proll, which is one of the lighter insults in the dictionary. It's a specification derivation of the word prolet, which describes a lower class person, mostly like a male, someone who's a peasant, a member of the proletariat, but in a negative way. A Proll is the hyper-masculine, always trying to be the toughest guy in town, misogynistic, it isn't never nice to anyone ever type version of this. Another cool insult is Ganove, which is something that no one ever says anymore, which is a shame because I think it's a pretty cool insult. The best translation for Ganove is probably a crook, a criminal, a bandit, someone who will fuck you over at the first opportunity that they get, but not in a sleazy way. It's still common among like older people, but I've never heard a young person use it. Going back to things for which there is in fact an American equivalent, Fotze. Some of you will already have guessed what this word means, because even though it's nothing like the why am I saying American? English equivalent to the German word, it has the exact same energy. I am, of course, talking about the word cunt. On the relative country matters spectrum, it's more on the American end of the scale as being one of the worst words that you can use, and it is never a term of endearment in some context, as the word cunt is on like the more English Australian level of the spectrum. Just like the word Arschloch, it both describes the exact same orifice as well as the exact same kind of person as the English equivalent. However, it is only used on women. Cunt you very often can easily use on men, Fotze not so much. Interestingly enough, in Bavaria, fotzen is also a verb. Jemandem eine fotzen, which translates to fotz somebody, essentially, is to slap them in the face. Keeping with the women-only insults, Schlampe is another one of those words that is very different but has the same energy, and it means slut. A Schlampe is just a woman who sleeps around a lot, And while there's like a lot of modern women in the English-speaking world that call each other sluts as a term of endearment, like men call each other cunts as a term of endearment, and also people just do that in general in a non-gendered way, the same cannot be said about schlamper. You can call a man a schlamper in some context. At least you can call him schlampig, because schlampig is a person who is like messy and slovenly, just like, not in like the attractive scruffy kind, but just disgusting. Or in a professional context, careless or lacking in attention to detail. It is a big one that, if asked about it, Germans just won't tell you the truth about. Oh, Hurensohn! So whenever you ask a German to tell you what Hurensohn means, they will say, son of a bitch, which is just patently incorrect by every metric imaginable. The correct translation would be son of a whore, because a bitch is for one a male dog or a person who acts bitchy, but a hure is just an actual whore, a prostitute. Which, by the way, someone who behaves in a bitchy manner is a Zicke. Used to be you only called women this, or girls rather, now you can say it to anyone. When it comes to how the two words are used in polite society, the big difference is that son of a bitch can actually be used in polite society, in at least I think the American world. It's like a super light insult. Sometimes it's a compliment. Ah, you son of a bitch. Hurensohn is just one of the worst insults in the German language, though. There are some people who use the term with each other as a term of endearment, like cunt, but in general you should be very careful with that, because some people get really angry when you call them a Hurensohn. There's a word somewhat similar to hure, although it's not all that similar, really, but it gets confused very often, and it's Nutte. So while Nutte can describe a slut or a prostitute, that's not what it is primarily about. It is mainly about a certain way of carrying yourself. You know, the way you dress, the way you put on makeup, the way that you kinda act like a whore, that's nuttig. You're a nutter. I think the closest, like, English equivalent would be bimbo, which leads me to something that, like, especially my American viewers get very uncomfortable with just now. Just gonna show you a clip from a political talk show where serious issues are discussed on German public broadcasting.
Neger, 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 Negerkönig, Negerlein, Negerland,
Negerkönig,
Neger,
Neger,
Neger, Neger, Neger, Neger,
Negerlein, Neger,
Neger, Negermohren, Neger,
Halbneger,
Negerlein, Negerlein, Negerkönig, Neger, Nutten, Fotzen,
Fotze, Nutte, Schwuchtel, Nutten, Fotzen, Schwuchtel,
Arschgefickt,
Schlampe,
Scheiß, Fotze.
Yes, those people are using just the N-word on public live television, and most of them are white. And nobody gives a fuck. Here in Germany, we have a very different relationship to the N-word than people do in America, or even like Britain. The thing is that historically, aside from the, the one bit of history that we're not going to talk about right now, being German was defined as being a person who speaks German as their native language. That was initially one of the main driving forces that created a German national identity. And this can, in the modern world, even be true if you weren't born in Germany. If you speak German well, you're basically German. Though we do acknowledge differences in ethnicity, and sometimes in a somewhat racist way, we don't really do race here. If you want to be racist, go with nationality. We have a good amount of black people here, though most of them are African, not African American. This is the most quintessentially German thing I've seen. There was this clip, I've not been able to find it. I tried to find it for this video, but I promise you this is a real clip that exists. I think this is actually an African American guy living somewhere in Germany, speaking heavily accented German, and complaining that ever since all of these Eastern Europeans moved in to the neighborhood has been full of crime, and they're all criminals. They're all troublemakers, and they're all lazy and they don't work. The N-word in Germany comes in two different flavors. There is Neger, which most of the time is used to insult black people, but some people, especially like in older people in the eastern part of Germany, the former Socialist Republic, that's just the word for black person without any judgment. But again, that is rarely how the word is actually used, and the people who will use it in this non-judgmental way tend to be the kind of people who do look down on other races. There's this singer called Roberto Blanco. He's especially big among like the older generations. There was a German politician who once called him, this is years ago, called him a wunderbarer Neger, which essentially means a wonderful Negro. This was controversial back then also, but it is more so now that more political correctness has come over from the United States, you might say. And Roberto Blanco has consistently defended the guy, saying that, yeah, I am black, that is a fact, that you can't just claim that I'm not black, and whoever would be insulted at being called wonderful. From what I've experienced, black people in America just fully own the word now. They can do with it whatever they want, and they just give it away freely. Don't call black people nigger in German. Don't do that. It's fucked up. I remember being very good friends with one particular black kid as a teenager, and we would just throw racial slurs at each other all the time, because in essence, the racial slurs that white people have for black people here and vice versa have the same weight. Which also, if you want to get the favorite insult that black people use for white people in Germany, it's Weißbrot or white bread. And I love it. Also, the just general insult for German people here is Kartoffel, which unsurprisingly means potato. Though in recent years we have gotten the Turkish word Alman, which means German person, which basically means the same. It connects us with the stereotypes that people here have with Germans. Now, the other flavor of the N-word in Germany is just nigger, and that one is used exclusively for like bad purposes. That's one of the worst insults in this language also. And obviously it's a racial pejorative that is targeted specifically at black people. So it is very racist. Though, like a lot of young rappers in this new generation of rappers in Germany, especially black and Middle Eastern ones, have been importing it from America, and in that rap scene there's also a lot of white kids who do it, and they also use it, and it actually isn't a problem. Like, people don't consider it a problem if they're in that scene generally. Nigger, on the other hand, has been used liberally by white people in the German battle rap scene, and also pretty much no one has complained. In that context, it just refers to any person, like regardless of skin color. So, and just to like give you some information on the background on this, Germany has gangster rap. It has plenty of gangster rap. It has too much gangster rap, but the original German rap was fun and light-hearted and ironic. It was just full of jokes and people like messing with each other in like a really like a friendly way and talking about things that usually you don't talk about in rap songs, such as anything that isn't money and bitches and drugs. And that's where most of the battle rap scene comes from. However, you have a merging there of the, fun rap and gangster rap scenes of Germany, which is not only represented in the fact that there is battle rap at all, which wasn't the case originally in like the fun rap scene, but also there's a lot of like ironic gangster rappers over time. That's a very common thing here. Fucking goddamn, all the fucking tangents all the time in this video. But there's a worse N-word in Germany than just the two N-words, and that's where we come part circle, and that word is bimbo. And it just is black slave. That is what bimbo means. And also it's used by like middle-aged mothers when they're complaining that they have to clean up after their teenage children. They will ask, "Sehe ich aus wie dein Bimbo?" which means, "Do I look like your bimbo?" As I said, we don't really do race here. Here's the actual proper equivalent of the N-word in Germany though. Kanaka. Kanaka derives from the Hawaiian word kanaka. And yes, another word that derives from the Hawaiian word kanaka is Canuck. You know, the term of endearment that Americans use to refer to Canadians? That's like one of the worst words you can call a person in Germany. So now, Kanaka primarily describes youths of Middle Eastern descent, but it's a lot more complicated than that. Because we don't really do race. If you're just a well-integrated, maybe wealthy Middle Eastern person who just looks Middle Eastern but dresses German and speaks German and behaves stereotypically German, only an idiot would call you a Kanaka, and people would look at them weird because it's a very ineffective insult on account of it doesn't describe you at all. You're not a Kanaka in that situation. This is in stark contrast to, you know, America, where you can be, I don't know, the fucking president and people will still derogatorily call you a nigger because you people are fucked up and weird. Conversely, you can be German or, you know, Russian, Polish, any of the groups who also hang out in the German ghettos, which, like, you can go there safe at night. There's buses who will bring you around. They're nothing like American ghettos, even though gangster rappers in Germany would like them to be. But if you're just like a lower class people who behaves essentially like the equivalent of a wigger, you also just get called a Kanaka. The Kanaka-non-Kanaka divide is perhaps best personified in comedian Serdar Somuncu, who was born in Turkey, and he calls Kanaken Ersatzneger, which you should probably know what that means. And much of the culture that they identify as does sort of derive from black culture in the United States, or at least the caricature version that you get from across the pond as a lower class immigrant kid. So like not like that at all, actually. This is where the German gangster rap scene came from. You had this like fun, cool scene in various cities of the funny rap, and then you had Berlin. And there's a lot of ethnic minorities in Berlin, and there were a lot of music producers in Berlin who were pissed off that they just weren't as relevant anymore on the German music scene. So what they did was they just stole US gangster rap and got like Turkish people to do it. Which is one of the funniest things, actually. Like in America, when people think about Turkish people, they think about like wealthy people, which is the exact opposite here, because if you think about Turkish people, it's like poor, lower class people who live in immigrant communities and beat their wives. And conversely, in America, when people think of black people, they think of poor people. But in Germany, generally speaking, you will think of someone who is wealthy or extremely qualified and therefore came from Africa to Germany. The similarities continue because, let's be honest, many of these are manufactured or only developed semi-organically in the reclaiming of the word Kanaka, much like many black people in America call each other niggers. So, you know, Kanaken in Germany call each other Kanaken. At least that was the case when I was young, and people sometimes considered me a Kanaka because I went to like a problem school. May have become different with the modern youth. And that's really the thing that makes the German N-word not as bad as the American N-word. Being a Kanaka is not entirely tied to your ethnicity. You can stop being a Kanaka. I did. If you dress like a Kanaka, if you talk like a Kanaka, if you behave like a Kanaka, people will think of you as such. Whereas, especially in America, you can't stop being black. It just literally has an influence on how your life will go. You can't just change the way that you behave. You can't be of a different culture inside the country, because even if you try to separate it from that, people will always try to put you back in that box, which also happens in Germany to an extent, just nearly not as much. Which, you know, obviously all of this is not to say that there isn't racism in Germany, because there is, and there is a lot of it if you know where to look for it. It's just that those people are usually like very much at the fringes of society, more so than pretty much in any other country in the world. Like just the other day, I was eating with my grandmother. She hasn't lived in Germany for a long time. And she told me that like the people in Africa, it would be such a better continent if they weren't so fucking lazy. And I just did a double take. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Do people actually believe this in your generation? But really, even like ethnically racist people in Germany will prefer the kind of racism where you're racist and prejudiced against people because of their nationality, not their race. Which, you know, by definition isn't racist, but it's, you know, it falls into the same ballpark. If you're black in Germany, you're just black. If you're black and from Poland in Germany, people will assume that you're about to steal their car or their bike or their purse. Because that's the stereotype of Polish people in Germany, is that they steal. Obviously, people won't actually believe that, but they will tease you with it. And then you can tease them for being boring and uncreative. So after this, like, very inflammatory section where we talk about something that probably is going to result in horrible wars in the comment section of this video, let's end on a more positive note. When it comes to insulting the disabled, we take a big page out of the book of the absolute grandmasters of insulting people in English, the Scots. Much like the Scottish call people spastics, we call them spasties and spackles. And exactly like the Scottish also, the attributes that would describe a person that you would call a spasti have zero overlap with actual symptoms of spasticism, which is not even a thing. It's like an outdated umbrella term for a group of diseases that is completely unrelated to each other. If there's any Scottish people watching this who can in the comments maybe explain when you call someone a spastic, that is more than just when they're acting like a spastic, that would be nice, because I can't seem to find the right words to describe it. Which again, like nothing at all to do with actual spastics. But here's my absolute favorite. It's actually very lighthearted. Hyopai. It's great because basically it's only used in the Rhineland. I've used this insult in several parts of Germany, and I have gotten like weird looks from people because they didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. It basically means idiot, but in a nice way. It's like, yeah, he's a hyopai, he's an idiot, but he's a nice person. That one was a staple of my youth, you might say. So yeah, that's basically German swearing 101. If you have any more words, because I missed obviously most of them, especially like regional ones that are interesting, put them down in the comments. And also, if you are from a country that doesn't speak German, which is most of them, and you have any cool insults, also put them in the comments and inform us as to how they work. And with all these new insults you've learned, you can just insult the racists that 100% are going to find their way to the comment section of this video. Consider purchasing some of the products that I have on offer, such as my merch and my book, and in that spirit, go insult other people that you're friends with and you know that it's not an insult, so don't really insult them, but say the words to them, exchange yourselves, show your love for each other by means of being ironically insulting to each other. And see you around, cunts.